Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sree's daily global COVID-19 show. My name is Sree Sreenivasan, and it's my honor to convene this daily conversation around various aspects of the COVID-19 crisis and so much more. We talk about the health crisis, the financial crisis, and the inequality crisis. We're always looking for speakers and suggestions. Please email us, sree@sree.net. sree@sree.net. Today is episode number 171. That's right. We've been on the air for 171 straight days through the pandemic. We're live on Scroll Global and Scroll.in. Please tag your friends so they can join us. Even if they can't watch it live, they can watch it right after. Our special guest tonight, meet Simran Jeet Singh. He's listed on his Facebook, on his Twitter as anti-racist, activist, scholar, writer, educator, and it doesn't even start to describe who he is. He's the author of Fauja Singh Keeps Going, the true story of the oldest person to ever run a marathon. Brand new book. We'll get to talk about that and so much more. You'll meet him in just a couple of minutes. This is the time to hit share and tweet and get this in front of folks. I know that's what Simran's doing right now, and you can do the same as well. Hi, everybody. I'm Sree. Thanks for being here. I'm the Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation at Stony Brook School of Journalism and the co-founder of Digimentors, a social, digital, and virtual events consulting company. Our motto, don't cancel your event without talking to us. Don't plan your virtual event without getting in touch. My email address is right here, sree@sree.net. We'd love to talk to you. We've done events for 50 people and events for 100,000 people. I bet your event is somewhere between those two numbers. And if you'd like your own talk show, talk to us about that as well. You can see right behind me is Fauja Singh Keeps Going. We're going to come to that book and meet its author in just a few minutes. Get that tagging going. We're live on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn right now. Find me on those channels and hit share, please. We're able to do this because of our partnership with Scroll.in. Check them out and Scroll Global, please. In the first 165 episodes, we've had 1 million viewers, 122 million social impressions, more than 299 guests, 60 who have joined us from 62 cities, 16 countries, including the chief scientist of the World Health Organization. We're able to do this because of our awesome producers, Rose Horowitz at Rose Horowitz 31, and Vandana Menon, Vandana_Menon. Please follow them. They're live tweeting us tonight. And we're also able to do this because of our sponsors. And please let us know if you know someone who'd like to sponsor us. Let's thank our sponsors, starting with Muckrack Academy, Fundamentals of Social Media. It's a free course available right now to anyone, anywhere in the world. Please sign up. You will learn a lot as I did putting it together. It's at mrac.co/social, mrac.co/social. More than 4,000 people have taken this free course, and so should you. We also want to thank Nunbelievable, divinely delicious cookies on a mission. Each handcrafted cookie provides a meal to those in need. One cookie equals one meal. And you can use the code SREE, SREE, for 20% off. Nunbelievable.com. We also want to thank our sponsor, Charles Cunnan Carroll, and the book, The Inventor in You, a step-by-step guide to your first invention by Charles Cunnan Carroll, developer of more than 80 patents. Follow him on Twitter at Inventor Charles and his website, guidetoinvention.com, guidetoinvention.com. Additional support provided by
Hotstar Premiere Nights. Watch the year's biggest blockbusters streaming straight to your screen, exclusively on Hotstar.
The new Indian film Sadak 2 has just premiered today and is now streaming straight to your screen only on Hotstar USA. With subtitles, of course, hotstar.com/US. Check out the new film. We also want to thank our friends at She's on Call. Two surgeons, Dr. Sujana Chandrasekhar and Dr. Marina Korean, host a show every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. Their guests this week, Dr. Monica Gutierrez and Dr. Marsha Harris. Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern. And finally, we want to tell you about one of our event partners who is joining us and with a great event. It's called Rise or Fall Together, the OneShare.World Interdependence Summit. And it's on Thursday, September 17th. Register now, oneshare.world/live. It's a free event, oneshare.world. Take a look at the amazing lineup of speakers, including David Nabarro, the WHO Special Envoy on COVID-19, and Renee Fleming, the world-acclaimed singer and international advocate for the arts, Jairam Ramesh, leading expert on the environment out of India, and Kekashan Basu, founder and president of the Green Hope Foundation. All right, that's our sponsors. That's how we pay our bills. And now we're ready to meet Simran Jeet. I hope you're ready. Please tag and share with your friends right now. He's retweeting. I hope you are as well. I'm at Sree on Twitter. We're about to meet Simran. He is anti-racist, activist, scholar, writer, educator, and the author of Fauja Singh Keeps Going, the true story of the oldest person to ever run a marathon. Ladies and gentlemen, please say hello to Simran. Hi.
Hi, Sree. How's it going?
Great to have you here with us. I've been wanting to have you on the show, I think, right from the beginning. You're an awesome person to talk to about the issues that are going on in this country. It's now even more relevant than ever. So we're so grateful for your time. Our first question always, Simran, is how are you? How's your family? How is everybody doing through the pandemic?
We're good. Yeah, thank you for asking. So we live in New York City, just like you, and we were infected early with COVID. My wife is a physician at one of the major hospitals here in the city. So we were very sick, and now we're all better. And it's been, wow, four months, I think, since we were sick, and we're fully recovered as far as we know. So thank you. Thanks for asking. And yeah, it's really nice to be able to say it's a real blessing to be able to say that we're all healthy.
And tell us what that was like, if you don't mind. We hear about people who've had COVID and come out of it, but at the worst of it, what was that? Did you fear the worst?
Well, we actually, when it first hit New York City, I was pretty adamant that we leave the city and find safety somewhere. My wife insisted that we stay, and she said, as part of our faith as Sikhs, we are taught to serve those in need, and this is not a time to walk away from them. And so we stayed, knowing the risks. And she got sick first, as would be expected. She's an anesthesiologist, and so she was directly in the vicinity of people's breathing when she was putting on ventilators and intubating them and all that. So she got sick first, and she was very sick. She had all the symptoms, but it wasn't debilitating. I think what was really scary was when our two daughters got sick. We have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. And at the time, we thought that kids couldn't get sick, or at least they wouldn't be affected, but ours were. And it was their fevers were uncontrollable, up to 104, 105 every night. And we just couldn't get the fevers down. And so incredibly scary. And you feel so helpless in those moments. And you realize how fragile life is. You realize how small you are in this world. You realize how little you control. So it was a really humbling experience, and we're very grateful to be in a place where we're all better now.
I'm so glad to hear you're okay, and especially the part about your little kids being sick. You're right. We were all told that is not something that would happen, and now obviously we're seeing that that's happening more. Did you lose your faith in New York? Did you lose your faith in kind of the American medical system through all of this?
I didn't lose my faith in New York. I think for a lot of reasons, New York was vulnerable and would always be more vulnerable. But the fact that we were able to flatten the curve relatively quickly, and the fact that, when you walk around the streets now, you see such a collective understanding of what responsibility looks like. Like everyone's wearing a mask. I don't see anyone not wearing a mask. Everyone's being cautious. Everyone's thinking about one another's health as much as their own. And so that I've really appreciated more than I ever have before. I think the faith in the American government, the fragility of the medical system. Yeah, those are real questions that I'm asking now in a way that I haven't asked before. I think, you know, part of what we've seen through the pandemic is a lot of the problems that were bubbling, that were underneath the surface have bubbled up through the top. And we're now at a point where we can't really hide the fact that, you know, we don't have the answers for everything, that our science isn't as fail-proof as we tend to think it is, or that we present it to be. And also that, you know, things like the claims around equal access to medical care for everyone, I mean, that's just patently untrue, and it couldn't be more obvious to us than it is now when we see the disproportionate impact on Black and Brown communities. And so, yeah, a lot of these things that we're seeing in the news, but also in our neighborhoods and in our communities. These are things we've always known to be true. It's just that we don't have the option to ignore them anymore. And I think that's why we're reckoning with it now. We can't ignore it.
And that is what is happening to so many people as they are trying to understand and explain what is going on. And then you layer on top of that the racial protests and the horrifying things we're seeing on TV almost every day, and the rhetoric that we're hearing as well. And we'll talk about all of that. Folks, if you've just joined us, we're talking to Simran Jeet Singh, author, activist, educator. He's at SikhProf on Twitter. Please follow him, SikhProf. He's an amazing follow on Twitter, and we'll talk about his online activities as well. First, let's just do a quick thing that we do here on this show, Simran. We look at where people are watching from, and they get to say hello to you. And you can tell us any memories or thoughts you have about some of the places that we're going to be seeing on the screen here. But first, Rajan is watching from Long Island. Hi, Rajan. Thank you for being here. Jonathan's watching from the East Village. Hi, Jonathan. Jonathan's watched 171 straight episodes every single day for almost 6 months. We're coming up to the 6-month anniversary on the episode 180. And here's Apollo watching from Las Vegas. He was a guest on our show when we talked about Vegas. He also talked about what was it like to be a Black man living in India and the unusual racial circumstances around that. Do you have a good story, Simran, that you can share about Vegas with all of us, or is that nothing that can be public?
Well, the adage is that what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So I don't know if I'm supposed to share it, but I mean, my best memory of Vegas, I was just there this last year. I had $10 in my pocket and walked through a casino my last night there, and just I was with a friend and we played blackjack and we quickly turned our 10 into 100 and walked away. And yeah, I mean those are the best stories about Vegas, right? I mean the shows and all that is nice. There's nothing like the thrill of making your money amplify exponentially, right? So it's great.
But the hard part is the walking away part. You know, people do make money, but they get that $100 and they say, okay, let me turn that into 1,000. So you knew to walk away.
I mean, my friend, that's exactly what my friend did for me. So yeah, if I had been alone, I probably would have burned it all before I walked away.
My mom's watching from Kerala. Hi, Amma. Love you. Great to see you, Amma. Have you been to Kerala, Simran?
I haven't. My trips to India have only been in the north so far. So yeah, one of my dreams is to make my way around the country and see, all the cultural and regional diversity. Yeah, in Kerala has to be at the top of that list.
Yeah, and you must let me know when you do that. We know this it could be a while, but whenever you do, you let us know. Rachel's watching from the upper west side in New York City, and she works at Asia Society, which does all these awesome programs. And we've been collaborators for a very long time on many programs. And Sunny says hello, Simran, and Paula's also saying Simran, and Sunny's watching from Houston, and you're from San Antonio.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Texas. I have the Texas love. I'm not supposed to bring up basketball and our basketball rivalries when we talk to people from Houston, but yeah, Texas is my birthplace. It's where I spent 22 years of my life. My family's all still there. So yeah, all the love for Texas.
All right. And I hope your family's watching tonight. I hope you had a chance to share on Facebook and Twitter. If you haven't, we'll give you a second to share with everybody. Let's see who else is watching. And Rachel, so excited about this One Shared World Interdependence program, globally crucial. Hope people can join us. Yes, that would be great. Let's see who else. I'm in Seattle now, but heading back to Delhi in a few weeks. And she's at the Religious News Association. This is Nicole Nerulius Gupte, who is a wonderful writer, and you might know each other, Simran.
Yeah, I do know Nicole. I write for the Religion News Service. I'm a columnist there, but I know Nicole from all of our gatherings. So yeah, hi Nicole, nice to see you.
Yeah, and Neil says, I have been a Twitter fan of @SickProf for a while. Thanks for being on the show tonight. Watching from Springfield, Virginia. Neil is the newest member of our Digimentors team, even though he's been around for a long time. He just joined us after leaving United Way Worldwide to be our VP of Events and Comms. And so we do a lot of things together, including a fun show that we do every single Sunday. It's called the New York Times Read Along. And we are going to meet at 8:30 a.m. this Sunday with Liza Donnelly, a New Yorker cartoonist, visual journalist, and writer. And we've been doing this for almost 5 years, reading the New York Times early on a Sunday morning. And Neil is the executive producer of that show. And it's always great to have him watching on this show. Let's see who else is here, and then we'll come back. Brown Pundit says, hi, Simran. And Suni Shaw says, hello, and Simran from Taos, New Mexico. And Rajan is annotating the show, and he is posting Religion News Service, and there's the link, and people can find your work there. Anu Sehgal is watching. Love, love, love the book. Can't wait to partner with you on this groundbreaking book, says Anu Sehgal. That is awesome.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Let's do this. Let me just go full screen for a minute so everyone can see the book right behind me. It's called Fauja Singh Keeps Going, and it's a true story of the oldest man ever to run a marathon. And I think it says oldest person, and we'll hear more about Fauja in just a minute. But I love the advantage of working with books this size is they look really good in the background, Simran. A lot of the smaller books, only take up this much room, but here I've been able to use it as a backdrop for a few days now, and it's really cool to see that. Charu Sahani is watching from London and says hello as well. So you've got a global audience here from Kerala to London to Seattle. And what are your favorite London memories?
Oh, I mean, this is too easy for me to plug into the book, but I was there, about 1.5 years ago as part of the book research. I met with Fauja Singh there. And so tons of beautiful memories of London, but nothing will ever top spending 2 hours with Fauja Singh. This past year, he was 100. He had just turned 107 when we sat with him. And he spent so much time, and our daughter had just been born, our second daughter. And so he held her in his arms for most of our conversation. So yeah, that was a really special time for me. He lives out in Ilford. And so we spent half a day there with him. It was fantastic.
What was he like? What a opportunity for you to meet him.
Yeah, I mean, I've met him 3 times now. Once in England, once when he was touring in New York City, and once when he was touring in Washington, D.C. And the first time I met him was in D.C. He was 102 at the time. And I just could not get over the fact that he was so energetic and humorous and kind. I mean, very rarely in your life you meet someone who lives up to all your expectations, right? That's such a special thing when that happens. And he was one of those people for me. Like, he was exactly how I hoped he would be in real life. And so anytime I spend time with him, it's just such a joy.
We're looking at his Wikipedia page, and it says he's a British Sikh centenarian marathon runner of Punjabi Indian descent. He has beaten a number of world records in multiple age brackets, but none of his times have been right. That's what that says. His current personal best for the London Marathon 2003, 6 hours and 2 minutes. And his marathon record for 90 plus is 5 hours, 40 minutes in the age 92 of the 2003 Toronto Waterfront Marathon. And even here it says 6 in the city. That's a nice little joke over there. And we'll learn more about that and the book in just a minute. So to be 107, and now he is even older. What was it like to talk to him about that spirit of running and that he's made part of his story?
Oh, I mean, it was beautiful. I think, the first time I met him, I was just so enthusiastic. I had started running because he was running. I was inspired by him. In fact, the day that he set the record to become the first 100-year-old to complete a marathon, that was the same day I signed up for my first marathon. And it was mostly out of inspiration. It was partially out of shame. There was this feeling in my head that if he can do it, then what's my excuse at this point? But yeah, he completely transformed my life. And so we even started a running club here in New York it was at the intersection of running and social justice. All of our runs and events had a justice tinge to them. And we named that club after him. It was called the Surat Fauj Running Club. And our logo was a silhouette of him running. And so I got to spend 15 minutes with him and present him with a T-shirt from our club. I mean, it was a great first meeting. And part of what I learned from spending that time with him, if you get an opportunity to meet with someone who has that much life experience and wisdom, I mean, it would be a waste not to learn from them whatever you can. And so I think that's something our South Asian culture teaches us. Our Desi culture teaches us to respect our elders in a way that we don't see, here in the States. And so it was so important for me to just sit at his feet and to learn what I could. And the other opportunities I've had with him, I've gone out of my way just to sit and listen. And for him, one of the most remarkable things that I learned and have actually brought into my own life is that running was about physical health, but it was also about his mental health. And he began running, as it's described in the book, he began running essentially as a way to deal with depression after his wife died and his son died in a tragic accident. He immigrated to a new country. He didn't have any friends. His family was too busy to spend time with him, and he needed something to do, and he needed a way out. And so running became his refuge. And so that was true for him. And I've been thinking about that a lot through this pandemic. That's become my escape. I'll run out to Central Park here in New York City and just put in a few miles and clear my head. And again, it's nice exercise for my body, but it's also nice exercise for my spirit and my mind. And that's something that I've really taken from his life.
It's great to hear. Let's take a look at some of the more of the comments coming in. Stefan says, greetings from Ramsey, New Jersey. Simran, wow. He was talking about how scary it was when you had COVID-19. So thankful you are all okay. And Stefan is a good friend and the host of his own show on social media and photography. It's at noon Eastern tomorrow, and it's called the Spin It Social Hour. Let's talk photography and social media. And his guest is Tom Franklin. Thomas Franklin is the amazing photographer who took the famous photograph at Ground Zero of the flag raising that became a postal stamp and so much more. And he's a terrific speaker. So please tune in tomorrow at noon to watch the Spin It Social Hour, which will take place. Then Vandana is putting in all these links, and Sunny says, wow, amazing. And he's also put in a link here to this article. Says Dr. Singh is the author of Sikhism, a reporter's guide of out from the Sikh Coalition. So let me start by talking about for the book. Tell us the genesis of the book. I know you've obviously been inspired by him, but how did you decide to write it as a children's book versus as a biography or any other format? Walk us through that, please.
Yeah, it's a great question, and really for me, the story starts with my growing up in Texas. My father immigrated there in the 70s, and at the time when we were growing up, we were the only Sikh family with turbans in all of South Texas, and so it was that alone was, you can probably imagine, it was isolating and lonely. But then I remember going to bookstores and libraries and looking for children's books that I could show my friends that would have characters who looked like me and the people that I loved in my family. And I remember being so disappointed every time that I just couldn't find a book like that. And the reason I couldn't is because they didn't exist. And when I asked people if they did exist, they would say no, because they're not relatable. And I didn't totally understand why that hurt so much when people said it, but what I essentially realized over time was what they were telling me is people don't care about our stories, that our stories don't matter. And yeah, that was a really tough pill to swallow. And I think I was around 6 or 7 when I made this promise to myself that when I grew up, I would write a children's book if no one had already. And so, I mean, I thought about that over the years, but I didn't really put it into action until 30 years later. My daughter was born, my first daughter, and we started going back to those same bookshelves, the bookstores and the libraries, and looking for the books we wanted for our home library. And as I started looking through those books, I realized, you know what, nothing has changed. No one has written a story in which Desi Punjabi Sikhs could see themselves in these stories. And you know, in a world where we're talking constantly, and the research is showing us how much representation matters, I realized in that moment that I had to write that story for my kids and for all of our kids. And so that was when I resolved to put the story together. And then Fauja Singh himself, it was just at that time that he was in New York for an event, and that story, that encounter that I described, where I took my older daughter to spend time with him, that was right around the time that I had resolved to write this book. So meeting him then and thinking about his life and all the lessons, and thinking about what I wanted to teach my daughters and how I wanted to raise them in this world, it just made perfect sense that his story was the one I wanted to share with them.
I'm so it's so great to hear that. Let's see some of the comments that are coming in. Apollo is tagging Kanwal Preet. Everyone, tag a friend right now who would benefit from hearing the story and meeting Simran, and please ask him questions as well. He's an educator and always open to talking as frankly as possible about what is happening in our world. Mummy Singh says, greetings from your hometown, San Antonio. So proud of you.
Yeah, that's my mom. And so when you asked, is my family joining? There we go. Mom, and I'm guessing my dad is there as well.
Oh, wow. That's great. Hi, very nice to have you here, Auntie. For those who are not South Asian and watching, this is what we do. Everybody's an auntie and an uncle. That's how we roll in the South Asian community. So it's great to have them with us. Anu asks a question. Any plans on translating the book into other languages? Do you use any Punjabi in the book?
Good question, and that's a perfect, exactly the question I would expect from Anu, who knows this world better than I do. I would love for this book to come out in other languages, especially in our South Asian tongues, Punjabi, Hindi, Urdu, Gujarati. I mean, that would be such a dream come true. Part of the reason why I would love for that is because I think this book is just as important for our kids as it is for everybody else's kids, right? And so I don't want this to be just a book that sits on American bookshelves or British bookshelves or Australian bookshelves. Like, this should be and could be inspiring all of our kids, and language access is a really important way to do that. In terms of Punjabi language in the book itself, yes, we did use it, and we were very intentional about wanting to normalize our languages and our vocabulary as a way of saying, you know what, this is not so foreign, just in the same way that our kids can learn simple Spanish words as they do in the States, right? Like amigo or Spanish colors and days of the week, like my daughter's learning. Like, they could learn Punjabi, and that would make us in many ways more human. They could learn Hindi and come to see Hindi speakers as not foreign, but as totally relatable. And so, yeah, we were intentional about bringing in the Punjabi. And, you know, I think the first few words that come up are Shad, Danda, that's a name that Fauja was called because of his thin legs growing up by bullies.
Danda means stick.
Danda means stick. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so there are a handful of words that come up, and why we decided not to have a glossary in the book as a decision to say, you know what, these are words that you should be able to pick up in context. And we do have an educator's guide in which we have the definitions for vocabulary, and we have the pronunciation guide that takes you to audio links where you can hear how the words sound in my voice. But in the book itself, we wanted to make, it was a political decision. Let's let these kids normalize what they see as being different or foreign.
You know, that's one of the things that Arundhati Roy did in God of Small Things, a book, you know, huge novel that won every award back in the late 90s. She said it in Kerala and didn't translate every word, didn't have a glossary, at least in the edition that was released in America. And I used to say people loved that book and gave it a Booker Prize without, you know, if you were a Malayali, you got even more out of the book. You know, you were missing about 15 to 20% if you were not Malayali because you were missing the Malayalam words. And so that was, and so that same decision that you have made is fascinating. I see here words like dal and roti are just in there, and people will pick it up or they'll look it up, right? That I guess is the other thing as well, to have it in a world where they can do this. And so I'm just looking through this where, according to you, the story is that he was watching TV one day and he saw some people running for no reason and running around town, and he said he had to start doing that. And you talk about how he left for, or earlier he had left for England at the age of 81. Who does that, right? Like, that's not at all the typical way in which people migrate, move around the world, and he did that. And this is, talk a bit about the illustrations, because they're absolutely key to any children's book as it is in this one.
Oh yeah, I mean, the illustrations for this book are just stunning. So here's something that was really interesting as part of the experience. My agent for the book is a South Asian herself, Sree Prasanna. My editor for the book is South Asian. She's Namrata Tripathi. And the illustrator is also South Asian, Baljinder Kaur. And so part of the experience, yeah, there she is in the photo. Part of the experience and what makes it so rich and why it feels so authentic is we had an entire team of people who understood the culture and the story in a way that was deeply personal. And that was really important to me. And I think that was especially true for the illustrations when my editor asked me to suggest an illustrator. I'd been following Baljinder's work on Instagram for years. I mean, her art is beautiful. And I thought she would be especially good because she has a passion for depicting the elderly. And so because this Fauja Singh story deals with and depicts and narrates the story of somebody who is elderly and really celebrates him in his old age in the way that she does in her art, I just thought it would be a perfect fit. And what I didn't think about, but turned out to be true, was that it really mattered that the illustrator was also of Punjabi descent, like Fauja Singh. And the reason that matters is in the very details of her illustrations, you'll see specific intricate things like Punjabi textile, like the traditional Fulkari style, or the hair, right, the gut and the parandi, like even in just that image, or that salwar kameez you see there, which is, a very Punjabi style. And also, look, these are, I just opened to a random page, but it's on every page, like the kada and the kanga. I mean, it's not just that these are articles that one would know about a Sikh. This is exactly how my mom would do my hair every morning, right? It's like you need to have somebody who knows the culture when they represent the culture. And again, this is why representation matters, right? You can't constantly have other people telling your stories. It's really far more powerful when you have people telling their own stories. Yeah, I see Sree pulled up her Instagram page. A few of these come from the book, but as you'll see, she goes by Blajender on Instagram. And a few of these, the first 3 are related to the book. The next 2 are just images that she's taken. This is Sardar making jalebi, right? So yeah, these are really nice examples of her art.
And this is so beautiful. And this is also, when people say, put your work on Instagram so you can be discovered. Everyone, this is what just happened, is that Simran discovered her work on Instagram. And when he had a chance to hire an illustrator or to recommend an illustrator, he was able to recommend her work. Baljinder, her Instagram handle is Blajinder, Blahjinder. So that's really great to see that. I hope she's watching. Is she based in the East Coast? Where is she?
No, she's based in the UK.
Oh, okay.
So she's based in Wolverhampton. And so as part of her process, she was actually able to go meet Fauja Singh as well. And so she spent a bit of time with him, learned about his stories, did some sketches of him in person, and got a feel for how he walked. I mean, I'm not an illustrator, so I didn't know this was part of the process, but she told me she got a sense of how he walked, how he sat, how he moved around, and that was really helpful for her in capturing him in an authentic way.
And that's right. That's why we weren't able to have her on the show with us, because it's in the middle of the night in England.
Right, exactly.
So we'll have to have her on another show so that we can talk about creativity with her and others. I also wanted to you have the book there. Would you mind reading the foreword that Fauja Singh has written? It's so beautiful.
Of course.
And I'll just show, while you're reading, I'll just hold it up so people can see here his English writing, and is that his signature that he did in Gurmukhi?
Yeah, well, actually, that's his. So I'll say this. You learn this in the book, but he actually never learned to read or write because of his disability. And so I wanted to incorporate that in the story for kids so that they got a sense of what disability looks like, but also so that they could think about somebody who is illiterate as someone who could be a hero, right? Those are 2 stereotypes we're challenging up front. This, what you were just showing, Sree, his signature, this is how he writes it in Nazdalik. That's the Arabic script, the Urdu script. That's the script that he learned. And then underneath that, it's not his handwriting, but that's the English print. So if for anybody who reads the Nazdalik, that's the fe, wow, right? The jim, the alif, so that's Fauja. And then the sin, noon, gaf, and the hey at the end, that's Singh. That's how you would spell it in the Urdu script. And so, yeah, it's this beautiful thing for me that we could get his, we captured this while he was still alive, so we could get his actual signature. Here, I'll read the foreword for you.
Yeah, but just before you do, I just want to say, how ignorant I sounded, presuming it's Gurmukhi, but it was, it looked, Urdu-ish or, kind of an Arab script, but I was saying well, it's unlikely, so that's why I said that. So thank you for correcting me and for teaching us as we do.
Of course.
So
yeah, if you want the nerdy scholar in me to come
please,
out.
go ahead.
Fauja Singh was actually born pre-partition. He was born in 1911, and so this is before the languages and the scripts really became communalized on the basis of identity, right? So before, we had a very hard line of Hindi, Hindu, Hindustani, right? That's sort of the regional linguistic and religious communalization of language that happens later in the 1900s. But earlier, before that period and far before partition, these languages and scripts went beyond religious and communal boundaries. And this is a really nice example of the fact that Sikhs, who typically now only do Gurmukhi, before, a lot of them were primarily writing and reading in the Urdu script, including my wife's grandfather, her Nana ji. He only knew how to read and write in the script, and so I learned it as part of my training, and that's how we would communicate. So it's just this really interesting way of thinking about how life changes, but also the kinds of immense changes that someone like Fauja Singh and our elders have seen in their own lives that we can't even imagine. So yeah, anyway, that's my nerdy my nerdy reflection on it. And here's the reading from his foreword, which is beautiful. All my life, people set limitations on me. They said I would never walk. Then they said I would never farm. They certainly never thought I would set records with my running. No matter what people said, I always believed in myself. I knew my body better than anyone else. I knew what I was capable of. I kept trying, I never gave up, and I always held on to hope. I wish the people from my birthplace of Punjab could see me now. The boy they teased for not being able to walk became the oldest person ever to run a marathon. I was the first 100-year-old to ever run 26.2 miles. Doctors couldn't figure out why I had trouble walking as a child, nor could they figure out why I was able to begin walking and eventually running. I think of it as a reminder that all of our bodies are different, and so are our experiences with disabilities. I'm now 108 years old, which means I'm probably more than 100 years older than you. Can you believe that? My secret to a long and healthy life has been taking care of my mind, body, and soul. Every day I challenge myself to think, exercise, eat healthy, and pray. I've really enjoyed my long life and hope you have a long and happy life too. I'd love for you to take care of yourself, try your hardest, and always choose yes when you meet a challenge. And who knows, maybe one day you can break my record for the oldest person to ever run a marathon. Nothing would make me happier. Fauja Singh.
Wow. This so special and so cool. Thank you for sharing that with us. Folks, we have about another 20 minutes with our friend Simran Jeet Singh. He's at SikhProf on Twitter, SikhProf. And we have so many people who are tuning in from all over the world, and we'll be able to watch this after as well. So please tag your friends right now and they can watch it afterward, because it'll start on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn as soon as we're off the air. Let's look at some of the other comments that have been coming in. Wow, look at Mark has really tagged his friends. This is how you tag your friends. Thanks, Mark. Mark is watching from Durham, North Carolina. So I'll ask you, have you been to Durham or the Triangle, Simran?
Oh yeah, you can't be an academic and a nerd and never make it out to the Triangle. Yeah, we're there often. Actually, I was very close to doing my program at Duke and UNC. So I was between. So part of my interest was I wanted to do Sikh studies, but there weren't really any programs for that. I mean, that's how underrepresented it is. And so it was either Islamic studies or South Asian studies. And Duke and UNC have some of the best scholars in South Asian Islam and Sufi Islam, which is what I was really drawn towards. And so that's why I almost ended up there. Wouldn't have minded one bit if I lived down there.
And Mark says, my friends Katina Rankin and Willa Brigham have done work for children of the minority community over there. Anandi is watching and says, we just got the book today and my 2-year-old loves it. We're also from San Antonio. Do you know each other?
I don't think so, but that makes me really happy. I like the book and my friends like the book, but the kids, those are the real test. So yeah, I'm grateful that your kids love it.
Apollo says every child should read about Fauja. The sooner they are introduced to different communities, the better. Thank you for this, Dr. Singh. Awesome. Stefan is tagged Niti. And Nicholas says the Maryland fan club sends greetings. Talk to us about Nick.
Oh yeah, we did a program this morning. He's a fancy librarian, and we did a reading for kids this morning. It was really fun. I mean, it's different, right? You have different audiences. You get to talk to with a book like this. You get to talk to kids about the things you care about, but I think it also, the lessons from Fauja's life lend themselves really well to adults. I mean, I think I've learned more from him than I would have ever expected, and I try and transmit that through the book. So yeah, spending time with Nick this morning was really fun. What kind of librarian did you say he was? A fancy librarian.
Yeah, that's what I thought you said. What is that? What is a fancy librarian?
I think maybe this is like the dork dream come true, but like who doesn't want to spend all their time around books every day, and then to have someone who does that and also has the power to bring in guests for programming and to tell people what counts as important. Yeah, that makes you super fancy.
I like that. Pratyush is watching from Costa Rica. Have you been?
Oh my God, that is my favorite place in the world. I went there first when I was 24, and I made this promise to myself that I'd go back every 2 years. Yeah, and I want to retire there. I'm jealous of you that you get to live there.
And that's amazing. And you've been able to do most of that? You've been back many times?
Yeah, many times. And yeah, if you haven't been, you have to go. I've been trying to convince my parents. Since they're listening, I'll remind them that once the pandemic dies down, that's the first place we all need to go.
All right, so you heard it here first, Auntie and Uncle. You're going to Costa Rica. And Rahajan says that forward was beautiful and inspiring. Thank you, Rahajan. And Neil says, hearing the Urdu letters, very similar to Arabic. And Apollo says, wasn't Urdu the language of the Mughal Empire, derived from the Persian language, which shares the script with Arabic?
Oh yeah, so good question. But both of those, the comment is right. The Urdu script derives from Arabic, and so it has a few extra letters. And so, for example, one of the letters I mentioned was Gaf. You don't have that in Arabic. You start seeing it in Persian, and then that comes through into Urdu. Yeah, so it's the same letters with a few additions. The question about the language of the Mughal Empire, many people think that to be true, but the actual official imperial language was Persian. That's what the court documents were produced in. Urdu at the time was actually a language called Hindu, what we as scholars call Hindustani, for the most part, which is a way of saying like what Urdu and Hindi existed as before. So it was more of a colloquial language that has become more popularized as a literary language in the last couple of centuries.
Just look at Mark tagging away and Apollo tagging away. Everyone should be inspired by this. Tag your friends right now. Tweet at them. Share. They will all benefit from listening to our friend Simran as soon as the show is over. Alex says, can't wait to read it. And we have another friend saying, followed him on the internet for years, so is now watching you here as well. Oh my God, I'm such a fan of this guy. So, which is great. And Pratyush, and Pratyush has invited you. Says you have a place in Costa Rica. Do come, and that's pretty
Thank
cool.
you.
Yeah, that is really cool. And we hear that met Fauja Singh and Dr. Tina and Mr. Parhar, his running companions, when he came to New York City for the first time. Are these folks you know as well?
Yeah, so Dr. Tina is one of the leading, and Satnam Singh Parhar as well. They're some of the leading Sikh activists in the New York City community, and also avid runners. I think Dr. Tina has done 24 straight New York City marathons. I think that's the right number, but he's there every year and he runs with a big Sikh flag. I mean, it's big orange turbans. And I think, I'm trying to remember the name of their club, but I think it's also Sikhs in the City, as you see with Fauja Singh's shirt on the cover of the book, where it says, there you go, Sikhs in the City. So yeah, Dr. Tin and Satnam Singh Parhar are I don't know, big inspirations to me as well.
Nice. Let's see. And Apollo keeps going and is tagging lots of friends. So everybody, please do that. Let's also take a look at some of the other coverage you've had recently, including here is a story by Harmeet Kaur, who we know from CNN. Kid's book about the world's oldest marathon runner is the first by a major publisher to center on a Sikh character. And this is the piece that she wrote. And there's a photo of Fauja Singh. And the book is called Fauja Singh Keeps Going. And that's the important thing, when we talked about all those South Asian connections to the book, including the editor, the illustrator, you, of course, the agent. But we should make it clear, this is a book published by Penguin. So this is not, a South Asian book. It wouldn't be unusual if this was published in India or in a South Asian American press. In a mainstream American press, that this book has been published is great. But also, I think, kind of sad that this is the first book published by a major publisher about a Sikh character. Yeah,
I mean, anytime you say the first of anything, we're probably far behind. But also, it's an indication that we're making progress. And so, yeah, it's bittersweet for sure. It's these things are always bittersweet, and I think what's really important to me is that we make sure that it's not the last, and that's why I've been so committed to getting this book out there and promoting it however I can, because really, if the argument from people, and it's a chicken and egg argument, if the argument is, well, there's no market for this book, and my counter argument was, how do you know? I think there is. Like there's nowhere to really go with that. So now that the people have taken the risk, right, publishers have taken the risk and said, all right, prove it to us. I feel really responsible to ensure that I do prove it, make sure I sell as many copies as we can, and make sure that they believe that they can do more books like this, right? Not just for Sikh characters or Sikh communities, but for all communities that are underrepresented. I mean, if you look at the numbers around publishing in children's literature, they're horrible when you look at racial diversity, let alone religious diversity and cultural diversity. And so this is something I feel really passionate about.
And here we're looking at some of your tweets. I should come back up here and first look at your Twitter handle: Sikh Prof, anti-racist, activist, scholar, writer, educator, and the author of this book. And you've got your email address there as well. You also have one of the best profile photos on Twitter. I always show this to people, that you can have some personality. When I teach about using Twitter, we always say have a nice close-up photo, and so this breaks some of my rules, but it does it in such a beautiful way. So I'm going to give everyone a close-up of this so they can see it. Tell us about this moment you took this photo. Where did you take it? And I think it's down by the stock exchange.
But yeah, you're right. It's right by the stock exchange. A New Yorker would know that. I think it's so the downside of having a photo like this for someone like me is when people don't know you, they might think you're a lot cooler than you actually are in real life. This is probably the coolest I've ever looked in my life. Yeah, it was. We were just doing headshots for our work, and they said, why don't we go down and do something active? And they said, what do you like to do? And I said, run. And they were like, go run and do whatever running looks like. And so running somehow turned into jumping, and the amazing photographer Garminder was able to capture that moment.
Give a shout out to the photographer again.
Garminder Guman.
Very cool. And just really, I just love this picture. And you're right, it does make you look really cool, but you are cool, so it's okay. And yeah, this is reminding MN to update MN's bio. And MN says, this is awesome for everyone whose grandpa is Sikh, and for their grandkids, everyone who will meet him. Akruti says, so excited about this book. And Akruti, we have to have you talk about your children's book startup, which he's been doing, which is great. Mark asks if Fauja Singh is still living, and we heard that he is, and we're grateful. I have a friend who I believe will turn 104 in January and still very active. And so that's great to know. And God bless all these folks in their in their later years able to do all this. I can't even walk a marathon, let alone run a marathon at my age. And you're a runner. Come on, you're a runner. I'm a walker. I try to walk 5-10 miles a day when I can. Not during the pandemic as much, but it really, you got to start somewhere. So you're going to start with the walking. And Iman says, may he be kept healthy, and may God bless his time with us. Absolutely right. I do want to ask a question that those of us who try to explain South Asia to the world sometimes get wrong. The pronunciation of the word SIKH. Some of us go out of our way to say Sikh so that an American ear doesn't hear Sikh. And I've been told many times that is wrong, and this is a moment to kind of educate Americans and not go that extra way to kind of differentiate that. Talk to us about this, because I'm sure you've thought of this as well. Yeah,
sure. I mean, the short answer is the way it's pronounced in the original Punjabi is Sikh, and as many, it's a word that we hear in many South Asian languages. It derives from Sanskrit, but the pronunciation in Punjabi is Sikh, and that hasn't really changed over the years. The change in pronunciation really comes in with colonialism, and as the British come in, they start pronouncing it Sikh. And so, to me, it's an act of it's an act of resistance against colonialism. It's also an act of reclaiming our traditions. And part of my politics is that I shouldn't have to change who I am for you to accept me or for you to see my humanity, right? Like that's part of what the turban and beard means to me, that I'll live my way and you live your way, and we can figure out a way to get along. And I don't have to assimilate or conform to your ideals. And so I personally say Sikh. I encourage others to as well if they're open to it, but I don't insist on it, because I mean, one of the things we all know that happens with language is that words change over time, right? The way we spell them, the way we pronounce them. And so with language, there's no right or wrong. And I'm the last person to say that. But if you ask me my preference, it's to say Sikh. And the reason why is because that's the original pronunciation in Punjabi as opposed to the colonial pronunciation.
I think that was very eye-opening to a lot of people to hear that. And I'm quite moved to hear you describe it as an act of resistance to say Sikh instead of Sikh. And I've been corrected about this already by our friend Rakhi Mirchandani and others over time, but it's something that I do kind of instinctively. And now even more, I will work hard to say that and to say it's on the others to understand and to adjust rather than for us to adjust. So thank you for saying that and for sharing that with us. In fact, Iman said that she wanted to ask, but felt like such an American question, and says it's easier to say Sikh. So that's good. And Iman says, she says that with her name, but she says she cannot say Pakistan properly. As you know, Americans say Pakistan. One of the things that was a wonder about President Obama was candidate and then President Obama was that he could talk about rotis because he had a Pakistani roommate, and he could say Pakistan and not say Pakistan, or which was, I thought, so amazing. Here is what about Sardarji versus Sikh? I'm sorry, I don't know how to relate how they relate to each other.
Oh, it's a good question. So Sikh refers to anybody who identifies as part of that religious community. Sardarji is a term that has come, it derives from Persian, and it literally means a leader. Sir in Persian is head, and Dar comes from the verb dashtan, to have. So someone who has leadership, someone who's at the head. And so it's a term of respect historically in Persian, and it comes through in Mughal culture, a term of respect for anyone who you consider to be a leader. And over time, it has specifically within the Sikh context come to refer to somebody, to a male who maintains a turban and beard. So who actually keeps the identity, because not all Sikhs do. So a Sikh is a more general term that captures anybody who identifies. And Sardar refers specifically to a male who keeps the turban and beard.
Thank you. And Iman says, if you want us to say it that way, she will. And I'm from Chicago. Mark says, get in touch with the onisreadingrainbow.com. They're a roaming bookstore for children of color. So I'm not familiar with that, so hope you'll check it out. Akruti says, love it. Yes, we can all figure out a way to be ourselves and to get along. I think that's beautiful. Folks, we have just a couple of minutes left with Simran Jeet Singh. Please share the tweet and Facebook post with your friends so they can join us. If you have a question or comment, please join us as well. This is his Twitter photo, and his Twitter bio is Sikh Prof. And let's just take a look at some of the things that he has pinned here. He's posted, including, I wanted to point out that this is your pinned post from August 14, 2017. So for 3 years, you've had this here. Talk to us about why this is your pinned post and what this means to you. You also, is the first 2 words in your Twitter biography is that you are anti-racist. So talk about that, please.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And some people think that your pinned tweet has to be the one that's received the most retweets, and so you show off how popular you can be. And to me, it's not that. To me,
though I got to say, look at these numbers, though.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, they are good numbers, but I could have pinned something that has more, and I think it's this. So just if you go down a little bit more, this is the profile picture I was thinking about changing mine too.
Okay, you have to tell us the story. We'll get back to Angela Davis in a second. Tell us the story.
Oh, sure. I mean, our book just became a national bestseller today, and so I had to celebrate somehow. So I got on the unicorn.
This was today. This you took this picture today.
Yeah, that was today.
Everybody has a floating unicorn lying around, so this is great that you capture it. Go ahead. You were saying about the Angela Davis quote.
Yeah, so I think her quote says it all for me. That essentially, when you know, and we all do know at this point, about the racial inequities that exist in our society, if you stand by and you don't do something, that's not neutrality. That's not simple silence. That's actually being complicit. And so what Angela Davis's quote did for me, and the way it changed my life, and the way I use it for my own feedback loop now, and for my own spiritual practice, is to remind myself that if I really do care, then I will be intentional about the actions that I take. And it doesn't do enough to just say something, and it doesn't even do enough to just notice something, right? Like, you actually have to take some sort of action. And when you make that into a practice, into a daily practice, then you can actually move things, but also you can actually transform yourself within. And so it's been a really powerful teaching for me.
That's great. Let's look at a few more of your tweets. Let's see here. This was, your book arrived yesterday. This is Neil tweeting about you. And tell us about this tweet here.
Oh yeah, so this was, as you read it, it pretty much sums it up. There was this moment the first time I read the book to my 3-year-old. She's 4 now, but she was 3 when I first showed it to her. She saw this image of Fauja about my age, combing his daughter's hair about her age, and she was like, "That's you and me every morning." And so to me, that was the dream for this book. Like, that's why I wanted to do this, so that kids who had never seen themselves in a book and never seen someone like me in this book, like, leaving aside my daughter, like, the negative messages we constantly get about certain communities and certain people, I mean, we don't have counter messaging for that for our kids, and they just take in whatever we give them. And so this, to me, was this like beautiful moment of what that counter message can do.
That is amazing. And many of us dads are terrible with our daughter's hair because we kind of fumble around. Because you grew up with long hair yourself, are Sikh fathers better at handling their daughter's hair?
Not me. Somebody actually saw this image and commented and said, "I can't believe how well you do your daughter's hair." And I, in response, said, "Well, that's just an illustration. You should see." So I'm learning to braid. It's getting better, but that's the bar was pretty low when I started. So better is not much.
Here is a fun thing that I always like to look at. Who does Twitter think you are, and who do they suggest follow after people follow you and look at your work? And what does this say to you that these are 3 of the people that they have chosen to be suggested viewers for you or your followers? Rashida Tlaib, Elizabeth Warren, and John Legend.
Progressive, I think that's the word. I mean, in terms of politics, that's where I tend to sit. So I had actually officially endorsed Elizabeth Warren. I'm a supporter of Rashida Tlaib and a big fan of John Legend. So yeah, it's Twitter knows what it's doing.
Yeah, it does. If you do this right, it certainly does. And I'm actually very proud to see that it says Coalition Z is following Rashida, and Coalition Z is my daughter is the national co-executive director with my 17-year-old, and they do a lot of amazing, very progressive work to get the Generation Z, Gen Z folks to be active and participate in electoral politics. So that's it's nice to see that next to Rashida's name. Before we let you go, I know it's been a long day and it's for a long week. I presume, what are your when you're not promoting the book, what are the various projects you're working on? How can people, apart from following you, see your other work as well?
Oh, thank you for asking that. So I am, let's see, I'm preparing for the next semester. So I teach at Union Seminary, I teach Buddhist history. And so that's on my agenda for this week. I'm teaching this year a course at Columbia University called Anti-Racism as a Spiritual Practice. And so that's something I'm working on. I have a couple columns. I write for the Religion News Service, as I mentioned. So I have a couple columns, one coming out today, I think, and one next week. And then I have a show called Becoming Less Racist, also with Religion News Service. And so that's getting up and running for the second season now. So we're preparing for that. So yeah, a handful of different things, but the most time goes to the kids. It's still summer. We're still in the pandemic. School hasn't started yet, and so yeah. What am I doing with my time? Mostly trying to figure out how to braid their hair.
Well, someone has to do that. Let's see here. More. Neil says, thank you for your explanation of Sardarji. I didn't know. Iman, I guess, says, can I ask one more question? Can we be punny? Yes, you can. Feel free to ask a question. Pratyush says, people have started to associate Urdu with Islam. What are your views about that? I guess he means Urdu was beyond Islam, I guess, is what he's saying.
Yeah, well, that's what I was referring to in terms of communalization, that we've decided in this post-partition, a little bit pre-partition too, but we've decided in this modern Indian context that, each religious community gets its own language and gets its own land, right? You have Hindu, Hindi, Hindustani, as I mentioned, Urdu, Islam, Pakistan. It's not how things have been historically. It's a unique formation of identity. I think it creates a lot of tension. I don't personally buy into this kind of nationalistic, bounded identity way of thinking. I think it creates not just tension, but a lot of violence. And partition was an example of what that violence could look like. And it's one of the most horrific moments of violence in human history. We continue to see these tensions, between India and Pakistan as an example. It's incredibly problematic. And so I wish we lived in a world where people were more thoughtful about history and understood that these languages were not reserved for particular communities, that they were developed over historical time and were shared, and culture was shared, and it wasn't really sort of, you're this and I'm that, and I see my humanity, but not yours, right? That's not a way to live, and I wish we could change that.
So right. Apollo says awesomeness. Rahajan says yay. Sunny said just ordered a copy from Amazon for the little one, so that's really cool. Iman says I'm buying it for my Sikh friends, and so that's really cool. Neil says representation matters. Iman says that's so sweet. And let's see what else. She says, I miss social impact work. There's nothing better than having impact and doing this kind of work that he's doing. Pratyush says, the Guinness Book of World Records has decided not to attribute the record to Fauja. Your views?
I am very disappointed by that. And I think Fauja himself is very disappointed by that. If I can be frank, I think it's an example of white supremacy in action, right? So it's what kind of world do we live in where we hold other cultures to standards that we decide should be universal when they're not? So for example, Fauja Singh he was born in 1911 in a village in India. They did not have birth certificates then. They hardly have birth certificates now. My parents, my dad, didn't even have a birth certificate. He was born, five decades after Fauja Singh. birth certificates were not standard practice in India, even legally, I think until 3 or 4 decades after Fauja Singh was born. And we have all sorts of other documentation that shows that Fauja Singh was born in 1911. He has a passport. The UK recognizes him. He has been honored on his 100th birthday for his work and service in England. And so it's just an example of the way that, whoever has power in this world makes rules based on whatever they consider to be the standard. And whether or not you follow the same standards, you have to live by them, right? And that's what power looks like. And so I'm not appreciative of those kinds of approaches to thinking about global culture, but it is what it is. And so my hope is, and I don't know if this is a false hope, but my hope is that we can make another push to get Fauja Singh recognized within his lifetime.
And so so it's clear, they're not doubting that he ran the race. It's that, or he completed the race, that they're saying they don't know how old he is. And you're right. If it's good enough for the British passport, which has got to be or the British entry, I don't know if what passport he holds, but it's good enough to enter into England, which must check and double check and have really high standards. That the Guinness Book claims to have higher standards than that makes no sense to me at all. And that is really sad to hear that. Neil says, when I go to Simran's Twitter account, it suggests I follow Rick Chiza, labor activist, Joe Kumar, Sikh feminist, and Representative Ilhan Omar. So they really have figured you out in terms of your interests, which is cool. Iman says, learn something new. Let's see, so many other comments coming in. Amrit Kalotra says, thanks, Lekha. Simran Jeet Singh is down to earth. He connects with many. Plan to buy his book about Fauja Singh. Amrit is a dear friend of our family. Wonderful community leader in Washington, not just of the Sikh community, but of the Indian American, South Asian, and Washington, D.C. community. So it's great. And Neil puts it much more bluntly than you do. It says, Guinness not recognizing Fauja Singh, that's bullshit, he says. And Iman says, let me know how to help. So if you want to start a campaign, let's do it, Simran. When you have time, let's talk, or just tell us what to do. We'll follow your lead. You've got the juice to make that happen. And there's a comment coming here in Punjabi, I think. Is that
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh? That's our traditional greeting.
Yes, very, very nice to see that. And Brown Pundit says Sat Sri Akal, which is another greeting that people say to Sikh folks. And just last few things here. My grandma bought hers, and it was a second opinion. Pavan says, I caught the end of this and really enjoyed it. Thank you. And Pavan's the author of this book here. So we'll have this together on hyper education, why good schools, good grades, and good behavior are not enough. And he was on our show as well. So it's great to have you here. Tej says, languages are linked to a region, not religion. True for Urdu too, says. And Rajan says, blessings to you and your family, Dr. Singh, and always to Sri, Rose, and Vandana and your respective families. One of the things that Rajan has done for us is act on something we learned from Kimberly Crenshaw, the great Columbia Law School professor who coined the term intersectionality. We asked her, what can we do to be allies of the Black community? She said, say their names. And so Rajan has updated all the various names, reports that he's found online. And at the end of the show, I always say their names. And thank you, Rajan, for doing that for us. To see if there are a couple of other comments here. Yeah, Neil, Guinness is wrong. If the British recognize him, that should be good enough. Have another go. Jonathan, who's watched for 171 episodes, says, enjoyed the show. Thank you, Iman says, kudos on your consistency for the calls. This is awesome. And Iman says, I need to watch this from the start. And we'll be buying this book as well. And I second Neil's statement. So what about it, Simran? Do we have enough momentum to start to go after the Guinness folks?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I don't see. I think about it this way, and I thought about the children's book this way too. Whether he intended to or not, he completely transformed my life. And so, the book is a tribute to Fauja Singh, and a campaign like that, if it would mean something to him, I would be completely for it. So yeah, it would be a fun thing to start.
Yeah, so let's talk about that offline. Rajan says, I wasn't always aware that South Asian countries as they exist currently weren't a monoculture, and I don't think that most Westerners are aware of that. I think that Sree's Daily Global Show and some of the discussion tonight have affirmed the necessity for me to educate myself further about the various cultures of the subcontinent. Also true of East Asia in general. Rajan is half Filipino, half Indonesian, and he was a guest on our show and was just incredible sharing his stories. And I've always, in the time of this crisis, shout out to his mom, who was a nurse in this country for 50 years. And she died, sadly, this summer of COVID-19 in a nursing home. Rajan shared that story with us. We'll never forget it. We'll always think of your mother, Rajan. We are so lucky that Dr. Singh and his family had COVID and were able to recover, and we're so grateful that was the case. So, Simran, before we let you go, a couple of final thoughts. How do you advise people to think of these next 70 days or so that are left before the elections? How people that follow you, that care about your opinion, what do you say to them about how to think of what are the geopolitical things that they should be thinking about, the political stories that they should be looking for, and how to frame this election?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think a lot. I think I get this from my parents in terms of values. I think it's so easy to think about things in terms of our interests, right? Like what serves us best, where do we benefit, what makes our lives most comfortable. But I think where true joy and happiness lives is in our values, right? What can you do to live into your values? What speaks to you and your soul, right? Not to your not to your brain necessarily, but what speaks to your soul is the right thing to do. And I think as we look at the rise of ethno-nationalism all over the world, whether we're talking about in the US or in India, it's so tempting to fall into that. And it's also tempting to fall into the other extreme and say, I hate all those people, and take kind of the polar opposite position. And so my advice, if you're open to it, is to lead with your heart. Listen to your values. Find the people who are like-minded, and put your energy there. I think you'll find yourself a lot less frustrated. You'll find yourself a lot less angry, but you'll still find a way to make good, to do good. And to seek good. And I think that's a way to engage with this world that is so fractured and so divisive right now.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Rose Horowitz, one of our producers, says her husband, Alan Katz, who ran an incredible children's authors event for us, an episode very early, says my husband and our children's author, Alan Katz, showed me a Twitter post from a librarian telling everyone to read your book. Fascinating story and great to meet you here. So I love that connection. Iman says, I honestly think this could be quickly and easily coordinated offline. Neil suggests a hashtag Fauja Singh is legit. Amardeep Asar says, thank you, Simran Jeet, for standing as a voice for Sikhs. And Iman says, may she rest in peace, about Rajan's mother. Rajan says, Guinness is full of shite. Fauja Singh's date of birth is on his UK passport, and he received a greeting from Queen Elizabeth on his 100th birthday. So this is what you had said earlier, that if it's good enough for the British Empire, the British government, it should be good enough for Guinness. And last few comments here. This was awesome, Dr. Singh. Fauja is an inspiration. Thank you for such a good book and show. Good health to you all. Rajan says, I appreciate us talking about his mother. And Iman says, this is a great discussion. Did you mention the anniversary of the March on Washington, Sree? Shame that MLK's message and his issues he was fighting for still resonate in 2020, so many years after that historical moment. We did not get a chance to mention it yet, Mark. Thank you for raising it. It was, I was watching Martin Luther King III talking about how his daughter, 12-year-old daughter, brought him the video of George Floyd, and watching that and trying to understand and explain to his 12-year-old why what killed his grandfather, the hatred that killed his grandfather, is still with us today. And the unfair inequities of this world continue, and how hard it was. And then we also heard Jacob Blake's father talk about his son being shot in front of his grandchildren, and how sad that was. So thank you all very much. Here is news, breaking news, unless you saw it earlier. Chadwick Boseman, Black Panther, the actor, has died of colon cancer. Oh my God. Did you hear that, Simran?
I did not. I haven't been looking at the news, but
yeah. Oh my God, he was so young. He was awesome as Thurgood Marshall in the movie, and he was also in I think he was in 42 as well. Just wow, really shocked to hear that. Simran, we'll let you go. I know it's been a long week and a long day, and here we are at 10:30. I told you about 45 minutes. Here we are an hour and 20 minutes later. It tells you how great you are as a storyteller and conversationalist. Everybody get this book. Fauja Singh keeps going and keeps inspiring all of us. The author is Simran Jeet Singh. You see him right there. And the illustrator is Baljinder Kaur. Please follow her on Instagram. She's Blajinder Kaur, BLAH. And Simran is at Sikh Prof. Please check him out on Twitter. And thank you very much, Simran. We'll see you soon. Sat Sri Akal.
Sat Sri Akal. Nice to see you, Sree. Take care.
Thank you. Love to your family. And that was Simran Jeet. Wasn't he awesome? I promised you we'd have an awesome guest on a Friday night. And thank you to Simran for being here with us. I'm just kind of shocked to hear about Chadwick Boseman. It was so young, says Apollo. 7 minutes ago on his Twitter page, this was revealed. And Rajan says, this is saddening. He's done some great work over the years. I'm just going to pull up his page here so that we can all take a look. And just incredible news for someone so young to die at 43. Just imagine that. I can't imagine, and so sad. Let's just pull that up here so everybody can see this with us. Rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. It's with immeasurable grief that we confirm the passing of Chadwick Boseman. Chadwick was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer in 2016 and battled it these last 4 years as it progressed to stage 4. A true fighter, Chadwick persevered through it all and brought you many of the films you have come to love so much, from Marshall to Da 5 Bloods, August Wilson's Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and several more. All were filmed during and between countless surgeries and chemotherapy. It was an honor of his career to bring King T'Challa to life in Black Panther. He died in his home with his wife and family by his side. The family thanks you for your love and prayers and asks that you continue to respect their privacy at this difficult time. There's Sujana Chandrasekhar, host of our the sister show we produce called She's on Call, saying on Jackie Robinson Day, we lost the Black Panther. Thank you for sharing your wonderful talent with us. May you rest in power. Wakanda forever. I just can't believe it. 43 years old and died way too young. Really, really sad to see the story. And Rajan says, everyone please stay strong. Vandana says, oh my God, he's been sick for 4 years. I had no idea. I'm not a big Hollywood guy. I do try to keep up with pop culture when I can. I've seen him in multiple films, but just really sad to hear this. And at 43, so I guess his fans are not as surprised because it was known that he's been sick, but for someone like me, it's really stunning. As a longtime comics fan, I really enjoyed his portrayal of the Black Panther. And Neil says he didn't know either. Well, so here's what we're going to do, folks, at this time, as we do on this show every night. We say their names as we talk about the terrible things that are in this country that we need to fix. We asked Kimberly Crenshaw what we can do, and she said, say their names. And Rahajan, working on his own, volunteered to put together this list of names that I will now read out loud. Rajan, we should plan this better so that you can join me occasionally at night and just read these with me, because they're so important, and I'm so grateful to you for getting them to me. And let me do this. It is always hard to do this, but I consider it something that we must do every single day that we can. And so now I will say their names. Jacob Blake was shot by the police, on Sunday night. And his father told us that one of the first things he asked when he when he woke up was, why did they shoot him, and why did they shoot him so many times? And he's fighting for his life, says Jacob's father. The names are George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Michael Dean, Tatiana Jefferson, Botham Jean, Antoine Rose II, Danny Ray Thomas, Stephon Clark, Aaron Bailey, Charlena Chavon Lyles, Jordan Edwards, Chad Robertson, Mohammed Muhaim Jr., Terrence Crutcher, Corin Gaines, Joseph Mann, Philando Castile, Alton Sterling, Kaylin Rockmore, Janet Wilson, India Kager, Samuel Dubose, Darius Stewart, Sandra Bland, Alexia Christian, William Chapman II, Freddie Gray Jr. Let me pause there to say, when you hear names like Freddie and Sandra, these are names that have become household names. But so many of these other names you don't know and you haven't had a chance to think about. Every life matters, and we need to know and understand these names. Eric Harris, Maya Hall, Megan Hockaday, Janisha Fonville, Natasha McKenna, Jerame Reed, Tamir Rice, Akai Gurley, Tanisha Anderson, Aura Rosser, Shanique Proctor, Laquan McDonald, Michelle Cousseau, Michael Brown Jr., Eric Garner, Pearlie Golden, Gabriela Navarez, Yvette Smith, Renisha McBride, Miriam Carey, Chaim Livingston, Kayla Moore, Shelley Frey, Melissa Williams, Shalana Weldon, Alicia Thomas, Chantel Davis, Charmel Edwards, Rekia Boyd, Cherise Francis, Trayvon Martin, Eliana Stanley Jones, Ryan Boudou. I'll just pause there. Ryan's brother was on our show talking about his brother's death in police custody, and you can find this in our archives. Tanika Wilson, Catherine Johnston, Alberta Spruill, Kendra James, Latanya Haggerty, Margaret Laverne Mitchell, Taisha Miller, Danette Daniels, Frankie Ann Perkins, Sanji Taylor, Eleanor Bumpers, and you can see some of these dates, 1984, Emmett Till, killed by white supremacists on August 28th, 1955. His anniversary is today. And as you know, he was falsely accused of flirting with a white woman, as if that, so what, even if as if that would justify anything. But he was falsely accused of that and was killed. George Stinney Jr., convicted of murder in an unfair trial as determined in 2014, executed in an electric chair, June 16, 1944. And this list does not include yet the name of the person who was shot and killed in the Kenosha during the protests, when that white boy took out his long gun and AR-15 and shot at least one protester, and he was able to walk by police with an AR-15 and wave at them after that, and nobody stopped him. Imagine a black man walking with an AR-15, and all of this is tied together. You remember the white crowds, all of them white, that stormed the various Capitol houses in May, demanding, in states like Wisconsin and Michigan and other places, demanding that they be allowed to get out of lockdown. There were no black folks carrying guns. The protest that I attended, there were no guns carried by the black protesters and white protesters. Those guns were carried in these other states by by white folks, white supremacists and others. And that is the part of the tragedy and the crisis and the unfairness of everything that is going on. Rahajan says, I will have an updated list for you on September 1st. Thank you, Rahajan, for putting this together. Sending you strength, says Apollo. And so many other comments coming in. Mark says, I'm shocked and didn't know he'd been sick that long. Very sad news. And think about the amazing work he was able to do at the peak of his acting prowess, at the worst of his health. And just stunning. Chadwick Boseman dead at 43 and announced just a little while ago. Mark says, we had another protest and rally today. And once again, it looks like part of the triangle will be facing a curfew tonight. Rajan said, once upon a time, lynchings were public events where white people would collect souvenirs and take photographs and send postcards to their friends. We cannot return to those times. And that is, this is how we think about how things get better in this country. And we have to keep that arc of moral justice has to continue to bend, and the arc of the universe has to bend towards justice, as we know. And I am so grateful to everybody for this family of ours that gets together every day. And even if you're not able to be with us every day, we are live 171 days, and we are doing this because we want to tell the stories of this pandemic. Our children, our grandchildren will ask what happened during the pandemic, and I'll be able to show them these videos, 170 and counting, 171 and counting. And many, many thanks to Scroll.in and Scroll Global. Many thanks to Rose Horowitz and Vandana Menon. Many thanks to our sponsors. We'll quickly run through them. Nonbelievable.com, divinely delicious cookies on a mission. Each handcrafted cookie provides a meal to those in need. One meal is from one cookie, and 20% off with the code Sree, S-R-E-E, nonbelievable.com. Also, thank you to Muckrack Academy, Fundamentals of Social Media. Free certification available. 4,000 people have taken this course. Free course, mrac.co/social, mrac.co/social. Big thanks also to our partners at oneshared.world, Rise or Fall Together at the Interdependence Summit 2020, Thursday, September 17th. A free conference. Register now, oneshared.world. And also thank you and good luck to our friends at She's on Call, Dr. Sujana Chandrasekhar, Dr. Marina Kurian. They host a show every single Sunday, and it's at She's on Call on Facebook and Twitter. Please check them out. We are also grateful to The Inventor in You, a step-by-step guide to your first invention by Charles Cunnan Carroll, developer of more than 80 patents at Inventor Charles. And the book, it can be found at guidetoinvention.com. I also want to tell you that we are very grateful to our friends at Hotstar.
Hotstar Premiere Nights. Watch the year's biggest blockbuster streaming straight to your screen, exclusively on Hotstar.
The new Indian film Sadak 2 has just premiered today and is now streaming straight to your screen only on hotstar.com/US with subtitles. So check it out, Sadak 2. And we also want to let you know that Sundays, the weekends are actually very busy around here. We do 5 different shows that we host. We do the 2 New York Times, we do the 2 COVID shows on Saturday at 9 p.m. and Sunday at 9 p.m. And we do the New York Times read along this week with Liza Donnelly at 8:30 a.m. on Sunday. Then we have the She's on Call show. And then we always want to point out that on Saturday, we do a radio show that's a spin-off show of this show. It's called Coping with COVID-19, a helpful, hopeful call-in show. We're going to meet entrepreneur Greg Copeland, who's helping schools think about how to go back to school. And we'll also meet Bobby Brown, who is the head of 100 Girls Leading at Bridgeport Board of Education. This is not the makeup artist, but a amazing leader in Connecticut. Bobby will be with us with Greg. That's noon to 2 every Sunday. It's a call-in radio show, and you haven't lived till you have been the host of a call-in show in New York or a guest on a call-in show in New York on WBI. People call in from across the political spectrum, from the extreme left to the extreme right, and we learn a lot, we share a lot, we laugh a lot, we get mad a lot. I have to sometimes use the mute button and hang up on people, but it's all in good fun, and we're trying to help New York grow and come out of the crisis and share information when we can. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here. Thank you for all your support. One of the things you can do to support us, tell us about friends who or anyone you know who'd like to sponsor us. It can be a nonprofit. Our rates are very affordable. And also, we want to let you know that it'd be great if you could follow us on Twitter at Sree or Instagram SreeNet, and definitely on YouTube, which it's also SreeNet on YouTube, and hit that subscribe button. Really, really important. And another way to know when we're live is with this QR code. So if you can pull out your phone right now, point it at the screen, and you will be added to my WhatsApp alerts list. It is not a WhatsApp group. Some of you know WhatsApp can WhatsApp groups can be very complicated. This is just a gentle alert every time we're live, or just write to me, Sree@Sree.net. Would love to add you to the list. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. And thank you, a big, big shout out to Simran Jeet Singh for coming on our show and for sharing so much and teaching so much. Remember, he told us Sikh, not Sikh, as some people say, as I say a lot. I say it very often, but it's now Sikh. He said it's his own act of quiet resistance as against colonialism, because that's where the word Sikh started being used. So I learned about that. I knew it in the past. I've been switching to Sikh, but now I'm doubling down on saying that the right way. Thanks very much, everybody, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.